Consider the following class declaration. Okay, so we have this class sample. We have two variables in this class, instance variables, and then we see one constructor. And it says that there are no other constructors in this class. So when we create sample objects, we must use this constructor, which says to pass in an int and a double. So when I construct, that's the constructor that I need to use. The following method appears in a class other than sample. So notice here we have sample object equals, and then we're creating a new, and then we must call the constructor. So when we create objects, remember this is the syntax for creating objects. We put the class name, which is the data type that the object is going to be created from, the variable name that we're giving to the object, which is how we're going to reference the object, equals the new keyword, and then you call the constructor, which, since one of the key things about the constructor is that it must match the same name as the class, then we're really going to be calling, and we're going to see the class name show up again, but that's because the constructor, like we see here, has to have the same name as the class. So when we're going to be filling in this missing constructor call, we're going to be filling in sample, since that is the name of the class. And then inside of the parentheses, we would pass the values that are needed for these parameters here. So we must pass in an integer first and then a double. For example, like 3 and 1.7. But it must be in that order. So the question is asking about which one will compile without error. The only one out of all of the options that is actually passing in values, where the first one is an int and the second one is a double, is answer choice D. When we call the constructor, we pass in the actual values that are going to be passed into the formal parameters, the placeholders for the variables. We do not, this would not be calling the constructor. This would be more in like the definition for the constructor, like you see is here, right? When we define it, we put in the variables as placeholders, but when we call the constructor, which is what we need to do to create the object, you pass in the actual values. So D is correct.